BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned 88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. The first thing I would like to say before we begin is that this channel relies on your support, but never asking for any money. The way you support this channel is simply by listening to some more of our content. And if you're into things about serial killers, in the description box here, we will have a link to our playlist on serial killers. Yesterday, we were talking about some of the things that we had done in 2020, but I would like to include the playlist of the things we assembled in 2019, as well as some things from the winter in 2020 as well on serial killers, including the one that we did on the serial killer Albert Fish, which I had a great time learning about and working on. I think there's some good material in there, let's just say that. And that is available in the description box here if you'd like to listen. Now, moving on to today's topic here. This is something that was requested by multiple listeners, and multiple people requested an upload on Xenophon Anthony. And the first time somebody posted that in the comments section, they said, "What do you think about Xenophon Anthony?" And I was like, I don't know who that is. Not only that, I don't know what that is. I was like, is that a name, a place, a person? Is it a thing? Is it a rock band? Is it a comic book? I really had no idea who or what this name meant. And then I saw some other people leaving the same suggestion. They wanted to hear about the Zodiac killer suspect, Xenophon Anthony. He probably pronounced it Xenophon because of a particular reason, but yes, indeed, that was his name, Xenophon Anthony. And what we're going to do is, for this one, we have to work backward when we discuss this theory involving Xenophon Anthony as a Zodiac killer suspect. First, we'll talk about some evidence in favor of him being the Zodiac killer or having something to do with the Zodiac killer mystery. Because once again, he doesn't necessarily have to be the whole individual who committed all of these crimes. He doesn't have to be the only figure involved. There could have been some other things going on. And I'm not saying that in an arbitrary way. We will see that as this thing plays out here. But yes, I'm over here on legacy.com, which has provided the obituary for Xenophon Anthony. And yes, indeed, he passed away in 2016. And I'm saying about the pronunciation of his name, he went by Xen, X-E-N, but I was reading on a forum about someone who had been researching him who said that it was pronounced Xen, like Z-E-N, but it's spelled X-E-N, Xen. Xen Anthony was born on January 28, 1931. He graduated from Lakeside High School in Seattle in 1949 and from Harvard in 1953. He and his wife Valerie were married in 1956 and lived in San Marino, California for 10 years before moving to San Francisco. And yes, people have gone back and checked. He was in San Marino, California in October of 1966, and Xenophon Anthony will become a suspect in the murder of Sherry Jo Bates, which occurred on October 30th of 1966. Then, like many people theorize, the people who believe that Sherry Jo Bates was a genuine Zodiac killer victim say that the Zodiac killer went from Riverside, California, north to the Bay Area. Xenophon Anthony did just that. And some of the other things that I was reading about him were that he worked in retail. You'll find that the word retail is heavily connected. And I was like, now, wait a second. I know that we said he was Harvard educated just there, but I was like, what do they mean he worked in retail? Because when you look at the Zodiac killer mystery, you're going to see that a lot of people are going to be a Zodiac killer suspects, but it appears that the Zodiac killer had a high understanding of mathematics and possibly the hard sciences. Well, Xenophon Anthony was a little bit more than a retailer. Like, when you look up his occupation, people will often write that he was a retailer/wholesaler. And after reading up a little bit more about him online, it seems that he was more involved with the wholesale side rather than the retail side, particularly with importing and exporting. Now, I said we were going to have to work backward. So if we look at the final crime in the confirmed Zodiac incidents, the murder of Paul Stein on October 11th of 1969. Now, if you were to do a little bit of Googling about Xenophon Anthony, you will find this incident, Paul Stein's murder, October 11th, 1969. Zodiac Cipher published a couple articles about this, where they claim that an eyewitness, an 8-year-old child, talked to the police and said that they recognized this man in the area. They recognized that this person here was Xenophon Anthony, the person seen walking away from Paul Stein's cab after he was murdered was Xenophon Anthony. So what do we make of that? Is that possibly a definitive sighting? Well, I'll say some stuff about that in a second. Let's keep going with the narrative as we work backwards. Before the Paul Stein murder, we have the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 1969. This involves the Zodiac killer wearing a hood, stabbing the victims, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. And then the Zodiac killer wrote a message on the car door saying that the Zodiac symbol, the dates of Zodiac activity, and then wrote "by knife" at the bottom. And what type of car was it? It was the Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. Sherry Jo Bates in Riverside, California also drove a Volkswagen Bug. But the thing to say about that is just that you can see that Xenophon Anthony becomes a suspect in this for a particular reason. There's another individual that is connected to the Zodiac killer mystery, and his name is Gilles Cavale, Kjellqvale. And we did an upload recently talking about Soren Korsgaard, a Norwegian writer who believed that the Zodiac killer was Canadian. Well, there's also a suspect that is a little bit closer to home in Norway. Gilles Cavale was a Norwegian immigrant to the United States of America who also worked in what? Importing and exporting, specifically the importing of automobiles, and became a very successful automobile salesman, wholesaler. He was a central figure in the auto business for the Pacific Northwest. The Volkswagen that Brian Hartnell had been driving was from Gilles Cavale's showroom in Oregon, where the Zodiac wrote the message on the car door. I've asked that question so many times. What do you guys think about that? Why did the Zodiac only write one message on the car door? I mean, he could have done that after the Paul Stein murder, or after Blue Rock Springs, or after Lake Herman Road. Why this one time? Well, one of the things that I was reading was that there's an individual named Mike Rodelli who has looked a lot into Gilles Cavale and thinks that he has some involvement with the Zodiac killer mystery. But the thing is, though, another Zodiac researcher who runs the website ZodiacKmac.com, Zodiac Kmac, M-A-K, ZodiacKmac.com, was saying that the place where Mike Rodelli went wrong is Gilles Cavale was not the Zodiac killer. He was in competition with this individual named Xenophon Anthony. Xenophon Anthony was the Zodiac killer. He committed these murders, and he wanted to do it in such a way that if anybody were to try and solve the clues, it would point towards Gilles Cavale. And he did this out of bitterness, out of spite, or perhaps even thinking that somebody would put the pieces together much earlier, and that they would kind of put all the focus on Gilles Cavale. If anybody figured this out, it would destroy his business. It was a frame-up. And how does that involve the door to the Volkswagen Carmen Ghia? Because there was apparently some type of promotional move that Gilles Cavale would do. As we said, he runs the auto showroom. He imports lots of automobiles. He would do this thing where he would put his signature on the car door. As we said, a promotional event. And this could have been done mocking Cavale, as well as spreading false info, or it would be a way to cover his tracks. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me how many things that people are saying about the Zodiac killer and all the methodical efforts that were gone to cover his tracks. I mean, it's even possible that the Zodiac killer cut off the soles of different boots and shoes and glued them on to the bottom of his shoes to leave false footprints. I mean, like, I've read that theory before. And the Zodiac killer, by his own admission, said he put airplane cement on his fingertips while he was committing the murders. I mean, we should say before he went out, he put airplane cement on his fingertips, so afterwards he would not leave any fingerprints behind. He openly admitted that in one of the letters. And this type of airplane cement, as I understand it, is for model airplanes. Now, I bet you'll be curious to know why we have the Z32 Cipher here. Well, what there is to say about that is one of the possible solutions to the Z32 Cipher involves what you see here, that if you look to the bottom, first and foremost, Xenophon Anthony is written there very clearly. You can see that his name fits up with the bottom line of the Z32. And if you look at the first letter, X, when we did our upload on the Z32 Cipher, There's an individual who runs the website Zodiac, Z32.com, who claims that he has spent 100 hours working on the Z32 cipher, trying to crack it. And what does he say that actually puts something in line with this and actually says that there could be some type of genuine connection? I mean, like, what does he say? That X is not a symbol. That is the letter X. Or if anything, if you want to say it's a symbol, it would be like how you would have 4x5, north by northwest. And you can even see one of the words there looks a little bit like north, like California north, and then something else. That's one possible solution to the Z32. But if you look at the bottom line, he says that X that's actually what it is, though. That is not a disguised symbol. And that guy who ran the website, Zodiac Z32.com, he has a 30-minute presentation on the Z32 cipher here on YouTube. It is excellent. I mean, it's great to just hear these different points of view and perspectives, that is, as like in terms of possible solutions. So that would mean that after 100 hours of looking into this, he says that that is what it really is. So here's the suspect who has a name that begins with X. And there you can see right up there, Xenophon Anthony. What is the first line? 3218 Jackson Street. Well, that was the address that they believe that Xenophon Anthony was staying at the time of the Paul Stein murder. And as I understand it, I mean, I'm going off of some information that people have written on forums with this. They believe that if Xenophon Anthony were the shooter of Paul Stein, number one, he could have murdered Paul Stein, cut off the piece of the shirt, and taken his wallet, adjusted his body in a particular way, and then walked out into the night. Where would he be going? 3218 Jackson Street. And some people have gone back to the site where Paul Stein was murdered in Presidio Heights, and they've walked from there to this address, 3218 Jackson Street, and they're writing about this on this one forum, and they're saying that it took about 15 minutes. And, 15 minutes walking along city blocks, depending on your mood, depending on the weather, that can go by very quickly, or it can go by very slowly. But one of the points that they brought up was they really thought it was implausible that somebody would commit the murder of Paul Stein and then make this 15-minute walk to Jackson Street, because there were so many opportunistic places to hide where they could just disappear, sneaking into an alley, sneaking into a dark area. Like, it'd be so much easier to hide from the police as opposed to just walking directly home. And also, I mean, you're going to commit the murder and then walk directly home. That doesn't even sound like the Zodiac killer. Okay, but now I said we were going to put forward the case first, and then we were going to put in some challenging evidence. Let's talk about some other things. All right, eyewitness ID. In some places online, you'll read that the witness who talked about Xenophon Anthony and a definitive sighting of him at the shooting of Presidio Heights was an 8-year-old. Some sources say that it was a 9-year-old. And the thing is to say about that, is he or she 100% sure that it was Xenophon Anthony that they saw? I mean, like, you're just looking at a figure walking away at the night. It would be, how close were you to them? And also, other than trying to frame up Cavalli, I mean, we're going to talk about motive here. And I would really like to talk about the solution to the Z32 cipher. All right, you can see that here, right? Xenophon Anthony is at the bottom. But the big issue with the Z32 is only 3 symbols in this repeat. The letter C, the letter O, and the triangle, which is possibly a delta sign. Only 3 symbols repeat. So clearly what this is just counting the number of symbols in each line and finding words that match up directly to them. Is that really what the Zodiac killer wanted to do? Normally, I would say that this is absolute bunk, that's absolute baloney, except for the fact that we said that somebody else has also shown a reason about how the first symbol, and that could genuinely be an X. That is not just some coincidence, but a lot of people will do this. This is one of the oldest tricks in the book, where they're just going to look at the Zodiac ciphers. They're going to count the symbols. Z13, Z32, the 18 symbols at the bottom of the 408 cipher. And they just put in a suspect who has 18 letters in their name, and 13 letters in their name, or as you see this one here in the Z32. And I don't necessarily believe that that is how we're supposed to solve these ciphers. I mean, I think that is a bit of a stretch. Okay, so number one, that's not very definitive. The sighting might not be 100% credible. I do think it's implausible that someone's going to commit the murder and then just walk home. I mean, they could have gone to various places, no matter who the Zodiac was. I never once thought the Zodiac would have walked home, but also, you can go look at this in a different way. it's in the vicinity. I will give credit to that. This theory, though, also expands into another thing, where you have Xenophon Anthony becoming part of the group murder theory, the multiple killers theory, the thrill kill club. And we did an upload about that recently on the channel. But when I say that is, they used a new word for that I was reading today. I think it was on ZodiacKmac.com. Excellent website, by the way. Zodiac KMac, one more time. And the thing to say about that is that they called it the Four Horsemen theory. They're like the Four Horsemen, that you have 4 incidents in Zodiac activity, right? Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, and Presidio Heights. When we did our upload on the Thrill Kill Club theory, it's exactly what I said, though, that there would be one person committing each one of these crimes. That's why there are so many differences, like the Paul Stein murders not at a lover's lane. There are no women present, but Lake Berryessa, the Zodiac's wearing a hood, writing the message on the car door. And then at Blue Rock Springs, you don't have any of that. You have a man and a woman in a car. Darlene Ferrin and Mike Michaud are shot. And Lake Herman Road is also different because it is right before the winter solstice. And also they were teenagers. I mean, it's possible Lake Herman Road wasn't even a lover's lane. It was just the entrance point to a water pumping station, and it was a dump site for drugs. So this Four Horsemen theory, I think, is something that is rather interesting. But I mean, I think it's a nice presentation, and it's a good thing to call it, and because that could just be another symbol, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, of course, and then you might have a 5th person writing the letters. It's possible, but I would also like to include the thing about how we're going to challenge this theory, because I said we would give some pushback. If you look at Xenophon Anthony as a suspect, and this entire motivation that he is involved in a frame-up of Gel Cavalli, that is a very consistent narrative. You're just going to find that in true crime, serial killers, because people are going to propose a suspect. Like we said, Mike Rodelli is talking about Gel Cavalli. Then somebody else is going to come along, and they're going to say, hey, that's not what happened. It was just made to look like that. I mean, people will do that very frequently, and I don't necessarily accept that that is 100% definitive evidence. I also believe that I was reading something online about how they were comparing the fingerprints of Xenophon Anthony to what was on file with the Zodiac killer, and they did not match. But, I mean, it's all, as the Zodiac said, he put airplane cement on his fingertips, so he never left any fingerprints, period. In the past, I interpreted that as kind of a cop-out on the part of the Zodiac killer when he's like, oh, crap, I left some fingerprints. Let me think of an excuse real fast about how those aren't mine. I mean, that is just the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about that response. But I would also like to share one thing. And I was just reading this in an article that was not connected to Xenophon Anthony. But in all of the incidents that are involving a gun, there are different firearms that were used, a 9mm, a 22, and a 38. Different handguns are used, right? One person brought up the possibility that they believed that the Zodiac killer was not trying to be captured. So why were different firearms used in each one of these events? I mean, my simplest answer has been, well, it's possible for somebody to own more than firearms. We're not talking about 300 or 3,000. We're talking about 3, right? And, I mean, I really shouldn't make light of this at all, but what they were saying is, it's possible that the Zodiac killer committed a murder, like, say, for example, Lake Herman Road, and then either destroyed the gun or buried the gun in some place, maybe threw it in a river somewhere, and then it would never be found. So after each crime, the Zodiac is getting rid of the firearm, perhaps getting rid of the ammunition, so that no one would be able to trace the crimes back to him. I think that that is somewhat of an insightful observation because countless people have talked about it. That's why a lot of people are even going down the pathway of the group murder theory. And as we said, with this 4 horsemen theory, they would be like, well, then Xenophon Anthony is clearly the murderer of Paul Stein, and then somebody else was the murderer of Cecilia Ann Shepard and stabbing Brian Hartnell. Someone else murdered Darlene Ferrin and shot Mike Michaud, and then a different person murdered David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. Now, I think that the stances on this 4 horsemen theory are expanding. And if we do remember, now, William Cooper talked about this all the time, right? Behold a pale horse. It is the pale horse that is running wild and spreading chaos. Normally, I wouldn't bring that up, except for the fact that the Zodiac killer messages are filled with literary references. They're filled with just different connections to pieces of literature, to comic books, to the opera like the Mikado. So I don't think that that is the craziest thing in the world. If there were 4 people involved, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, I mean, let alone we have Ibanez in the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So there could be something to that, actually, about 4 crimes, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, as well as the 4 seasons and the changes and the cycles in the moon. And we also talked about that in the solstice theory. What do you think about any of this? What do you think about anything that we said about Xenophon Anthony as the Zodiac killer suspect? Do you believe that there could be an ounce of credibility to this eyewitness sighting that just went overlooked? That an 8 or 9-year-old child saw someone whom they recognized living 15 minutes away named Xenophon Anthony. What do you think about this solution to the Z32 cipher? Or do you think that this method of simply writing in somebody's name who has the appropriate number of letters is incorrect? Notice that this does not include any middle initials. The word street is spelled out S-T-R-E-E-T. It's not abbreviated. I mean, what do you think about any of that? And also, is there anything that you would like to hear about on the channel? Because this was a subject that was requested to us from multiple different listeners. If there is a Zodiac killer suspect that you would like covered on the channel, please drop something in the section below, or any material in any way. We talk a lot about the Zodiac killer and serial killers, but any subject is fair game. Please share something in the comment section. What do you want to hear about? Is there just an idea that you want someone else to explore and share some findings with? Please drop your ideas in the comment section below, and please visit our playlist on serial killers here on this channel. It's in the description box here. I highly recommend that episode on Albert Fish, and I will see you guys on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.